You think silence is weakness. To a narcissist, it's their worst nightmare. Nothing sends them spiraling faster than your lack of response. No anger, no begging, just silence. Deafening silence. Because to a narcissist, you're not just a person, you're a source, a supplier of emotional energy, control, and the validation they crave to prop up their fragile ego. And when you stop reacting, they don't know what to do with themselves. Their deepest fear begins to surface. The fear of losing control, of being replaced, of facing the void you once filled with genuine love. Make no mistake, your silence doesn't just hurt them, it destabilizes them. In today's video, we're diving into why ignoring a narcissist hits harder than any confrontation ever could. From explosive rage to stalking behaviors and manipulative tactics designed to pull you back in, everything will be if you've ever been controlled, gaslit, or are on the path to reclaiming your life, watch this video until the very end. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss another message of healing and empowerment, the kind you absolutely deserve. Reason 1. Silence cuts off the supply, a direct blow to the narcissist's ego core. When you ignore a narcissist, you're not just going silent. You're pulling away the very thing they live for, your attention. To you, it might just be a few days of not replying, but to them, it's a direct hit to their fragile ego. They don't care whether you love or hate them. What they crave is a reaction. Every time you get angry, cry, or even just respond to a text, you're fueling their distorted sense of power. Silence means they have nothing left to control, and that sends them into a tailspin. Imagine this. Someone used to pushing buttons and getting instant responses. Now they push and nothing happens. They feel lost. Their ego screams for validation, for attention, for center stage. And when they don't get it, they become unstable, enraged, and dangerous. Some narcissists will try anything to shatter the silence, from fake apologies to playing the victim or even threatening self-harm. Not because they love you, but because they can't stand being abandoned. It forces them to confront a truth they cannot bear. They have no more power over you. Your silence, if held long enough, forces them into an ego crisis, and that's when they might escalate, just to reclaim control, but it's also the clearest sign that you've taken your power back. Not reacting is not weakness, it's ultimate strength, because it means you've learned to stop feeding the cycle of manipulation, and to a narcissist, that is unforgivable. Reason 2. Silence forces the narcissist to face themselves, their deepest fear. In the narcissist's world, there is nothing more terrifying than being left alone, not with others, but with themselves. Why? Because beneath the surface, where a real self should exist, there is only a cold, empty void, a bottomless pit concealed by layers of social masks, borrowed power and self-serving lies repeated so often they begin to believe them. And you were a crucial part of the performance. Every emotion you showed, every reaction you gave, validated their existence. You were the mirror that sustained their illusion. When you cried, screamed, or even pleaded, they felt significant, powerful, like the center of the universe. But when you go silent, when you withdraw without a fight, without response, without begging for closure, the nightmare begins. They're forced to look inward. No more reactions, no more manipulation. No stage, no script, no audience, just them, staring at a reflection they've spent their entire lives avoiding. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects nothing but truth, unembellished, raw, undeniable. It shows them everything they've tried to hide, that no one truly loves them, that they're not admired as they believed, that every ounce of control they had was borrowed, not earned. And here's the terrifying truth. They don't know who they are without you. Without you, there's no victim role to play, no one to blame, no one to guilt into loving them unconditionally while they offer nothing but pain. That's why they'll do anything to shatter the silence. They'll beg, plead for just one last conversation, cry, manipulate, weaponize the past. They might even threaten, not because they're heartbroken over losing you, but because they're crumbling without the image of themselves that they sustained through you. And this is the painful paradox. They never loved you. They loved the role you played in their fiction. You've walked off that stage. You're no longer the panicked reactor. You are the calm force who chose silence, not out of weakness, but because you're done surviving storms you didn't start. And that, to them, is maddening. Because when you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop seeking closure, you become uncontrollable. And to a narcissist, that is the ultimate insult. Reason 3. Silence strips the narcissist of their greatest weapon, emotional manipulation. A narcissist doesn't need force to control you. They manipulate you emotionally, through half-truths, calculated repetition, and the ability to make you doubt your own reality. They use love as bait and guilt as chains. One moment, they make you feel special, the next they make you feel small, and before you know it, you're stuck in a cycle of hope and disappointment, where they alone control the emotional highs and lows. But when you go silent, you don't just walk away, you break the cycle of manipulation they so carefully crafted. Silence is an unspoken declaration. I'm not playing your game anymore. To a healthy person, silence is space to reflect and heal. But to a narcissist, your silence is a refusal to participate in their power dynamics, and that throws them into disarray. They no longer know how to twist your emotions. No blame shifting works, no manipulation tactic lands, and that terrifies them. A narcissist doesn't care about truth. They only care if you believe their version of it. And when you go silent, no arguments, no defense, no emotions left for them to exploit, you reject the narrative. You defeat them without saying a single word. This hits covert narcissists especially hard, the ones who pose as kind, broken souls with tragic pasts. They manipulate not through threats, but through your empathy. And when you stop engaging, you take back ownership of your emotions, the one thing they fear most. You no longer need their validation. You're no longer trying to be understood. You simply walk away. And without your participation, they have no arena to perform in. Emotional manipulation cannot survive silence, because silence denies them a reaction. And without reactions, there's no control. When they can't sway your emotions anymore, they lose their most powerful weapon, and that sends them spiraling. Silence is not just distance, it's a deliberate reclaiming of your emotional authority. And when you do that, you're no longer a source of supply, you become free. Reason 4. Silence destroys the narcissist's illusion of entitlement to your life. Narcissists live under one deeply rooted belief, that they have permanent access to you. They believe that whenever they knock, you'll open. Whenever they text, you'll reply. Whenever they show up, you'll react. This entitlement isn't always spoken out loud, but it underpins every move they make. And, here's the catch, it only works as long as you respond. So when you go completely silent, you don't just walk away. You shatter the illusion that they are untouchable in your world. You make them face a truth they can't bear. They're no longer special. You used to be the place they caused chaos, only to return and play savior, the one they abandoned and came back to, demanding forgiveness, the mirror they used to see themselves as powerful and desired. But now, that door is closed. And not just closed, it's no longer locked from their side. What they can't handle isn't loss, it's the reality that you're doing just fine without them. Your peace enrages them. Your detachment dismantles the very structure of their self-importance because you're doing something no one is supposed to do to a narcissist. You're ignoring their self-proclaimed authority, and when you feel no hatred, need no revenge, and say nothing at all, you strip away every ounce of influence they once held over you. And that, to them, is the ultimate invisibility. Without your reaction, their illusion of power dissolves into thin air. So your silence is not a weapon, it's a declaration. A powerful, unshakable declaration that you've outgrown the game they once forced you to play. You're not just leaving them behind, You're revoking a privilege they thought they'd have forever. Reason 5. Silence stops the narcissist from rewriting the story, and they despise that. Narcissists don't just manipulate emotions, they manipulate memory. One of their most insidious tactics is the ability to rewrite the past, twisting the narrative, painting themselves as the victim, and gradually making you question your own reality. As long as you're still engaging, arguing, defending, explaining, they can bend the story. They can twist your words, reinterpret your actions, and if you get emotional, they'll use it as proof that you were the toxic one all along. But when you choose silence, when you stop debating, stop explaining, stop clearing things up, they lose something vital: control over the narrative. They can't keep rewriting the past if you're no longer participating in the present. They can't blame you if you're no longer listening. They can't build new lies without your reactions. That's when they begin to panic, because they can no longer manipulate the version of truth they present. Your silence breaks their feedback loop of deflection and distortion. Without your engagement, there's no new material to spin. They're stuck with a version of events they can't control, and that threatens their self-image more than you realize. Narcissists rely on controlling the story to maintain their social persona, and more importantly, to protect themselves from the truth. They have to believe they're the misunderstood one, the wronged one, the hero. And when you stop playing your part in resolving the misunderstanding, you force them to face a truth they can't bend. That leaves them feeling utterly powerless, and more dangerously, powerless in front of others. They fear your silence because you know too much. They fear your absence because it's an unspoken accusation they can't disprove. And worst of all, they fear that in your silence, others will start to ask questions. That's why your silence doesn't just bruise their ego. It destroys the entire control system they built around reality. Reason 6. Silence shatters the narcissist's invincible persona. One of the most dangerous traits of a narcissist is their belief in an unshakable illusion. They always win. They don't need you to be happy. They just need you to believe you can't be happy without them. In their warped reality, no one ever truly leaves them and thrives. No one gets over them. Because in their mind, they are the center of every relationship, every success, every story that matters. They construct a godlike aura around themselves. Untouchable, unforgettable, irreplaceable. They are the one who got away, the pain that shaped you, the unforgettable lesson. And do you know what shatters that illusion faster than revenge or confrontation? Silence. And a peaceful life. Your silence sends one clear message: I moved on from you, and I'm not looking back. To a narcissist, that is the ultimate insult, not because you left, but because you refuse to make them the final chapter in your story. They want to be mentioned, whether in anger or sorrow. They want to live in your narrative, attached to your name like a scar. But silence erases all of that. You don't speak their name, you don't tell the story, you don't respond. And that's how you erase them from the glorious history they wrote for themselves inside their own head. Silence is a weapon narcissists cannot fight, because they cannot perform without an audience. And when you refuse to sit in their theater, you don't just walk away, you bring the curtain down. You live, you grow, you heal. No cryptic posts, no revenge games, no explanations. And it's that, the calm, grounded, unstoppable silence, that breaks them. Because it proves something they never wanted to believe: you can live without them, and you lose nothing by doing so. Reason 7. Silence exposes the truth the narcissist won't admit. They still need you to maintain their illusion of power. Narcissists love to say they've moved on, that you were nothing special, that anyone could replace you. They flaunt new relationships, show off how happy they are, and act as if you never mattered. But beneath all that noise lies a truth they can't face. They still need you, not because they love you, but because you were once a crucial part of their distorted self-image. You were proof of their power, a trophy, a person who once reacted, once broke, once forgave, and therefore a supplier of ego validation they can't manufacture internally. So when you disappear into silence, it throws that system into chaos, no reactions, no responses, no presence. And that forces them to confront the dependency they've denied even to themselves. By saying nothing, you make them question, why do I care if they react? Why am I still checking their page? Why does their silence keep me awake when I'm supposed to be happy? Your silence exposes the internal lack they used to fill through your pain, not your love but your response. They needed your anger, your sadness, your return. Anything to feel like they still mattered, like they were still the one. But when you go silent, needing nothing, demanding nothing, proving nothing, you cut off the narcissist's ego fuel at its source, and that doesn't just frustrate them, it forces them to feel invisible, hollow, and stripped of the false identity you once unknowingly propped up. You become the absence they cannot replace, because every news source eventually sees what you saw, but you, the one who walked away quietly, without needing revenge, you're the void they cannot fill. Reason 8. Silence crushes the narcissist's center of the universe illusion and reduces them to a mere footnote. Narcissists live under one core delusion. They are the most important chapter in your story, even after the breakup, even when you walk away, even when you say you've moved on. In their twisted narrative, you still revolve around them. In their mind, you still think about them daily. You still hurt because of them. You still stalk their social media from the shadows. To a narcissist, your leaving isn't closure, it's just a test, a waiting game. They believe you'll be back, or at the very least, you'll never truly forget them. That's why your long-term, unwavering silence is the most brutal blow to their illusion. You don't talk about them, don't mention their name, don't post cryptic messages, don't tell the world your pain. You live as if they never existed. And the painful truth starts to settle in. They're no longer the center of your world. They're just a piece of your past, and not even a meaningful one. That realization humiliates them. It feels like being dragged from center stage and thrown into the audience, watching you move on, rewrite your life's script, with no role left for them to play. No dialogue, not even a glance. Your silence isn't passive, it's a power move. I don't need closure. I don't need reaction. I don't need to be understood. I just need to move forward without you in my story. And that's something the narcissist could never fathom, that you could erase them from the story of your life, not with rage, not with revenge, but with indifference. No one wounds the narcissist's ego more deeply than the one who once loved them and then chose silence, as if they never mattered at all. Reason 9. Silence forces the narcissist to confront their deepest fear, being replaced. Narcissism hate losing control, but there's something that terrifies them even more, the fear of being replaced. Beneath the inflated ego and the wounded, fragile core lies a primal insecurity, a terror that they're not truly special, that someone else might love you better, treat you with the respect they never could, and worst of all, that you might realize it. When you go silent, no rage, no pain, no longing, you leave a space within them, but it's not just the absence of you, it's the unspoken dread of the next person. You don't respond, you don't seek their validation, you don't beg for closure, and in that silence, their mind begins to betray them. They start to wonder, who's she laughing with now? Who's he giving that gentle part of himself to? Is the new person better than me? And deep down, they fear the answer is yes. They start watching, obsessing, scrutinizing every post, every smile, every absence of a mention, not because they love you, but because they can't stand the idea that someone else might now have what they used to own. Your silence opens a door they can't close, a door where you've walked out and someone better, someone worthy, might just be walking in. For you, silence is healing, a soft goodbye, a step forward, but for them, it's the slow unfolding of their worst nightmare, not just losing you, but knowing that you may now belong to someone who's not them. Reason 10. Silence disrupts the cycle of abuse and terminates the narcissist's reward-punishment system. In toxic relationships with narcissists, there exists a consistent behavioral pattern: reward, punishment, manipulation, reconciliation, repetition. Narcissists sustain control by keeping their targets emotionally unstable, unsure of what's coming next, and constantly striving to get it right to avoid punishment. When you react, whether through anger, grief, or a desire to reconcile, you inadvertently keep this cycle operational. The narcissist interprets your reactions as confirmation that they still hold influence. They can withdraw and return at will, and you will respond. However, when you choose complete silence, you do not merely withdraw. You terminate the entire behavioral reward system they rely on to control you. There's no one left to punish, no one to test, no one to reconcile with. The abuse cycle halts. Psychologically, this creates internal distress for the narcissist. They not only lose control over others, but also experience a loss of perceived mastery over their emotional environment. Without your emotional responses, they lose the feedback loop needed to adjust their manipulation strategies. In essence, silence places them in a non-responsive system, one they cannot influence. This not only renders them powerless, but also, in rare cases, may force them to confront their own behavioral patterns, something narcissists typically avoid. In conclusion, silence is not a passive act. It is a strategic disruption that breaks the cycle of emotional manipulation and initiates the potential for genuine recovery and autonomy. You don't need to shout to demand justice. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to prove to the world that you were right and they were wrong. You just need to not react. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest voice you'll ever speak. The voice that says you are no longer being controlled, no longer living inside someone else's emotional chaos, no longer trapped in a story that wasn't yours. Silence is not avoidance, it is a conscious, deliberate and powerful act, a declaration that says, I choose peace, I choose myself. To a narcissist, your silence is their nightmare. It strips them of everything they once used to control you: power, attention, victimhood, narrative control, and their delusion that they are irreplaceable. But for you, silence is a beginning. It is healing. It is the first chapter of a new story, one where you no longer need someone else to validate your worth. And if you're at the start of this journey, remember, you are not alone, you are not weak, and you are not invisible. You are walking forward with courage, with a silence that narcissists will never understand and will never survive. If this video resonated with you, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs this reminder of strength. Drop a comment, I choose silence to protect my peace. And as always, you deserve a life free from control.